Welcome to the Massive Passive Show, where you'll hear serious discussions about everything real estate investors encounter building their portfolios. Many radio shows and podcasts talk about real estate investing, but the host of the Massive Passive Show actually do it. Sit back and relax and learn about becoming a massive passive deal maker.
Good morning and welcome to the Massive Passive Show, brought to you by the Lone Star RIA. This is one of your hosts, James Haney, and we hope that you're having a wonderful morning and want to first of all wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day weekend. And today we have an exciting show. We're going to be talking about 1031 exchanges and some title things to be looking for when you're doing your deals. But first of all, I want to let you know if you are looking for any of our information, such as our upcoming events or our vendors. For example, we have Hal Gailey with Bayou City Tax, and we have Cal with Longhorn Investments, and Clint with Direct Mortgage Loans, and we have lots of others. We have roofers, we have fence guys, just about any contractor or vendor that you would need. We have that on our website at lonestarria.net. That's lonestarreia.net. And that's where you can find all of our information that I just referred to. And we do have some really exciting upcoming events that I do want to tell you about. First and foremost, we have our next general meeting in San Antonio at the Alamo RIA this coming Tuesday. We have George Salas is going to be talking about short-term rental and Airbnb acquisition secrets. So if you're in the San Antonio area on Tuesday evening, you're invited to join us for that. It's going to be an exciting night to learn some secrets on how to identify, acquire, and manage your Airbnb properties in short-term rentals. So we look forward to seeing you there. Also in Houston, next Saturday, we have the godfather of deal making, as one of our other hosts, Ray Sasser, likes to refer to him as, is the godfather of deal making. He is going to be in town, and he's not only going to be the keynote speaker Saturday morning. The meeting is from 8:30 to noon. We'll have breakfast tacos and networking, lots of other things going on, and then Peter will be doing the keynote topic, and then he's also going to be doing a bonus afternoon session as well. So go to lonestarreia.net. That's lonestarreia.net, and you can get all the information you need. Now that's Peter Fortunato is going to be here next weekend. So we are also joined by another one of our sponsors, Mansour. He's one of the principals with Transact Title. And as I mentioned in the intro, we are going to be talking about title and 1031 exchanges. So good morning, Mansour. I want to first of all thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. I'm glad to be here with you guys, and I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day weekend as well.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First,
Sure.
The first question I have is, because I'm sure there's some people out there that are like, what in the world is 1031 exchange? So can you define exactly what it is, what a 1031 tax deferred exchange is, and why it's important for investors?
Okay, so a tax deferred exchange means there's tax, and in essence, it's going to be deferred. And in that situation, let me give you an example. Let's say you've got let me give you a definition of it to answer your question. Basically, a tax deferred is basically exchanges that the government, or more importantly, the Internal Revenue Service, has a section of the IRS code that allows you to sell a property that you do not live in, that's considered your investment property, that you have owned for 1 year and 1 day, that you can sell it for a gain, a profit. And you could defer that and then roll that into another property, the tax that you would have paid, and you can buy another property that's equal or greater. That allows you to essentially, what tax you would pay, invest into the other property, and trade up on your properties. And you can keep constantly doing that essentially till the end of time and not have to pay a single bit of taxes.
Okay. Now, is there a requirement on the properties that you defer it to?
Sure, that's a really good question, James. So what happens is if you've got a property, let's call it 123 Main Street, right? You've got that property, you've owned it for a few years. Let's say you bought it for, in the 70s for, let's say, $10,000 just to throw out a number, essentially. And you've owned it for 30 years, and the market's gone up. And, like a city like Houston, you've got a lot of changes, and you've got a lot of equity. Let's say that property is now worth about $1 million. So you've got about, $990,000 of gain, right, on that property. That's a lot of taxes to have to pay out. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. In that situation, since it's an investment property that you've owned for at least 1 year, 1 day, instead of paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to sell that property in taxes, and the government will add in what we call the depreciation that they've given you, that you got to take a little bit each year outright, they're going to charge that back to you. So that's going to be a lot. So what the government allows you to do is sell that property, and they say, hey, as long as you buy a property that's equal or greater in value and the class it is. So if you got real estate, that's a house, land, building, whatnot, you can buy another form of real estate, but it has to be classified as real estate. You could sell your property. You've got 45 days to identify a number of properties that are equal or greater in value. So as long as you buy something that's, $1 million or more, one property or multiple properties, they'll give you 45 days to say, hey, this is what I want to identify. And then you've got 180 days in total to actually close on that new property, and you won't have to pay any taxes. It's a long-winded answer, but that's essentially it.
So the key dates that are the key time frames that I heard you refer
45 days.
45 days. Now, is there a requirement as far as when that property has to close? Because what if you identify a property, say on day 42, hey, this is the property I want to use, but you're not going to close, for another, it could take another 45 days, it could take another 60 or even 90 days to close. Does that affect anything?
That's a really good question. Okay, so let's say you sell your property, you're going to have 45 days to identify, and then you've got another 135 days to actually close on that property. So basically, from the day you sell your property, total time frame from beginning to end will be 180 days. But from the day you identify, let's say for the 45-day period, you've got an additional 135 days to physically close on the property, and defer all of your taxes.
Okay, and are you allowed to, let's just say that you make, let's bring the numbers a little smaller. Let's just say that you make, say, $200,000 profit, and you want to defer that. Can you split that up and do different types of properties? So say, for example, you do a single family house, and it's a high end, and you make a pretty significant profit of a couple $100,000. And then you decide, you know what, I want to put some of this money towards, a multifamily, and then maybe some of this money towards a mini storage or something of that nature. Are you able to defer it in multiple types of property? Right. Yeah. Like I was mentioning earlier, you could basically, it's as long as it's classified as real estate, you could put it in any type of real estate, whether it's mini storage, self-storage, a shopping center, office building, land, hotel building, rental property, residential rental property is all considered real estate. So it's likewise like kind. They want you to, whatever, if you've got a widget, they want you to replace it with a widget. Likewise like kind. That's the operative word. So looking at my notes here, and I've got another question, and some of these questions were prepared by me, and then there was some other. But it says here there's a term called boot when it's tied to what does that mean?
Oh man, those are really good questions. So what you've got taxable boot. So let's say you go and you want to sell your property. There's some credit card bills that you, but you're an investor. You got to, you always need some cash, right, to rehab and whatnot. So you sell your property, you want to take out, $10,000 or $20,000 to pay some credit card bills. At the time of closing, you could have the title company and say, coordinate with the exchange company to take a little bit of money out. You can do so at that time. It can only happen at that time, and the balance of those funds can go into the exchange, and you will only pay the tax on the reciprocal amount on that amount that you had taken, right? The rest of it will be deferred over. There's only on what you take out. That's what we call cash boot or taxable boot when you take it out at the time of your sale of your property, and the rest can be deferred. So it's still an excellent mechanism, right? You're still able to take full advantage of your exchange and the tax you would have paid, defer that, and take out what you want at the time that you sell your property. And that's only the bill that you will get is for the amount you take out. If you take out $1, you'd pay the tax on the dollar that you would normally pay if you didn't have not done the exchange.
So it's
still a great way to utilize it.
How does an investor set up a 1031 exchange?
Okay. So what happens is, there's very few of us in the country, right? So it's very specialized. There's only 2 of us that are actually domiciled here in the state of Texas. So essentially you contact a 1031 exchange company, which is a qualified intermediary as per the IRS. Let them know what you do the exchange, and then they can coordinate with your title company and to collect what documents they need, or you could send them over the documents that they require from the title company. But essentially, they will coordinate to put it all together so that it can be a seamless experience for everyone. We're fortunate in the fact that we have a title company, Transact Title, and where it's seamless, truly seamless experience and a boutique experience for our clients. And then we can coordinate with the different departments to get everything without having to have a single phone call over to the client to bother them for any information, because we've got real-time information and we can have everything ready. As long as we just get notified, hey, we should do an exchange, they don't have to worry about anything else. We'll deal with the title company and whatnot to make it happen for them.
So you might have answered this already, and forgive me if you did, but what is the specific role that a facilitator plays in the transaction?
Okay. So there's, essentially there's, what you call a qualified intermediary, and then you have companies out there be a facilitator to help coordinate that with the exchange company. We are the actual QI, or qualified intermediary. There are facilitators that intervene to help put this together. So we essentially facilitate and are the qualified intermediary to handle the exchange. A facilitator essentially puts it together with the QI. We're one and the same because we are the actual qualified intermediary. But essentially that's what they do.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go a little bit deeper here on this next question for the more advanced and more technical. As you guys can tell, I've never been involved in this, so this is something I'm actually learning here. I'm actually learning. I'll be going back and watching this recording and be taking some notes here because this is some great information. And if you're just getting started, I would advise you to do the same thing. Because we always want to, see how we can maximize the profits, maximize the money, and that we make in this business, and keep continuing to build that wealth that we're all after. So, if I was going to be looking at a property, and determining, okay, am I going to 1031 exchange this or not, and I'm going to be estimating, what my gain would be. How does the basis work on that?
Okay, the basis is the cost of your property that you had originally essentially purchased the property or have done any rehab or repairs of the property. That will be your cost or basis in the property, okay? So each year when you've had it, you've also had depreciation you had to enjoy on that the government gives you, was able to depreciate it over X amount of time. So when you sell it, guess what? The government's gave it to you. They've got to collect that depreciation back and charge it back to you. So that could be a good amount to actually consider when you're actually doing. A lot of people forget about the basis, not the basis, but the actual depreciation. That sometimes can be more than anything else.
So for those in our audience that may or may not know, what is the definition of the depreciation that you're referring to?
Okay, depreciation is the government gives you a schedule, like, for example, for real estate, will depreciate it for 30 years. So the cost of the property, you can take off a little bit off of your taxes, right? So that amount that they have given you credit for on a prorated basis over a 30-year, for example, schedule, right? You take a proportionate amount that they've given you each year. So if you add it for 10 years, they gave you, 1/30th each year, right? They'll charge it all back to you because they gave you that benefit. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And is that for each property, or is there a limit, or is it just on homestead?
No, that's for any investment property that you're gonna sell. So that's on every property, anywhere you sell, anywhere in America. That's gonna apply. Just to let you know, I guess I should have brought this up. It's more important. A qualified intermediary or 1031 exchange company can handle a 1031 exchange anywhere in the United States. It's a federal program. So, for example, our exchange company, EquiCap 1031 Exchange, operates in all 50 states. We can do exchanges. We are also equipped to do 1031 exchanges internationally, but there's a caveat to that when you talk about 1031 exchanges, in that likewise, like class exchanges for international property can only be done for international property. So if you've got a property in Belize, we were just talking about Belize, and now my mind's over there, right? You could have a property in Belize, you want to sell it. You can't trade into a property in the United States, but you could trade into another international property in France or Portugal or London, for example, and use the benefit of it there as well.
So just to make sure I understand that right, if you do a 1031 exchange on a property that is outside the U.S., and then let's just say 5-10 years from now, you want to sell that property and do another 1031 exchange, it still has to be in another country. It doesn't have to be in the same country, but it can't can't come back to the U.S.
It can come back to the U.S. And the only reason I'm bringing that up, we're talking about people who invest in Airbnbs and whatnot, or buying investment property overseas. I thought I'd bring that up because, you never know. Somebody could have that as a tool in the toolbox. It may be helpful.
Okay. Is there any other common topic, or maybe, hidden secret or something that you want to talk about for a couple of minutes that we have not brought up that is in regards to 1031 exchange?
Yeah, a lot of people think of 1031 exchanges. They used to do those, for art or airplanes or boats or aircraft, right? So that rules changed when the Trump administration came into. There's rules that were enacted that limited this to real estate, But it's an excellent tool to constantly upgrade your portfolio. I've seen many people go from residential properties or land to houses to multifamily, from multifamilies to commercial shopping centers, and constantly, and I use this term, you can trade up with this. One of the things that you can't utilize this in is if you're considered a volume dealer. And a volume dealer is somebody, for example, a car dealer, Hertz Rentals, a Perry Homes, I'll use them as an example, no relation to anything, or Ryan Homes, or would be considered a volume dealer. 100% of their income is derived only from construction and building or selling real estate. A 1031 exchange does not apply to them, would not benefit them, and it's not allowable. Whether they make their day-to-day living, 100% of it selling, building, and selling homes. Only then it would not apply. But we can look at it on a case-by-case basis to see if that situation applies. For most individuals, it does not apply, right? For most people on Perry Homes, a Hertz rental car with a couple $1 billion to back them up, right? But for most people, a 1031 would be applicable. It's a great mechanism to save money, taxes, and upgrade your properties.
Now, is there ever a time that somebody should not do a 1031 exchange? Or is there ever been a situation where it hasn't gone like the investor wanted it to go?
Well, I'd say probably for people who have investor property, over 98% of the time, it's a great mechanism. If you go to a lot of the investor groups or whatnot, they'll tell you to do it even if it's for $1 or whatnot. I tell people, look at your individual situation and see if you need the money more so or not. But, for most people, they're investors, they're looking to increase their net worth, and they're more focused on that. For them, that's a better place to be. And it's a good situation. But for somebody, if there's not a lot of gain, for example, if it's, $5,000 or $10,000, I don't know if it's better suited for someone to do the exchange. Sometimes it's better just to pay the tax since it's a nominal amount and move on with it. But, when you start talking, about $50,000, $100,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, it's definitely worth considering doing at those numbers. For, a few $1,000s, it's not worth doing, in my opinion. If you talk to some investors, they're diehards. They're like, $1,000, a taxable event is $1,000 saved. So it's better to do that. It's just up to your mindset or whatever you wish to do. But we're happy to sit down, work with you, talk to you over the phone, and consult with you as to whether or not it makes sense for you. But like I said, 99% of the people, it's an excellent mechanism. 1% of it may not make sense, right? But we're happy to work it through and talk it through with you. And see if it works for you or not.
And when you're working with somebody on that, you will actually do that. You'll advise them or give your opinion, your professional opinion. And of course, the decision should ultimately be up to them, but
right.
You will give them guidance on what you think they should do either way.
Absolutely. Either myself or a staff member will actually work with each client one-on-one. We handle the exchange, and you're designated with one person from the beginning of the transaction to the end of the transaction when it's consummated over there, complete the sale. It's a seamless turnkey experience to be able to help the client, and we're happy to advise them via phone, email, or in person as to the do's or don'ts, and as to how to complete the exchange. That's not an issue at all.
Well, awesome. Great information there. Want to take a minute and remind you guys that are listening to go to lonestarria.net. That's lonestarreia.net, and you'll get all of our information there. I failed to mention earlier about the meeting next weekend when Peter Fortunato is going to be here. Mansour is actually going to be there as well, and he is going to be doing a segment of the meeting going into a little bit more detail on some of the things that we had just talked about. So if you have any interest or have any questions or want to know more about 1031 exchange, we definitely encourage you to show up because, like I said, Mansour will be there, and he'll also be available for any kind of questions after and everything like that. So again, that's going to be next Saturday, 8:30 to 12, and that's going to be at the Transact Title location over there off of 610. And all the information is at lonestarria.net. So looking forward to having you there next Saturday, Mansour. Let's go ahead and shift gears because the other thing that you are known for, or one of the other things that you are known for, is the Transact Title. And, having a great solid title company on your team, especially when you're getting started, but no matter where you are in your investing career, having a really good title company on your team is key to your success when it comes to getting your deals closed, because there are times that some deals can kind of get what's the word I'm looking for? Having a brain fart.
Sideways.
Yeah, sideways. Get a little tricky. You got to navigate through. So, Transact Title has been known to, get through some of those deals, get down into the weeds and down to the roots and solve some problems. So I do have some general questions, and I'm sure along the way we'll get into some a little bit deeper topics. But first, one of the important things, and Mansour will back me up if needed. But one of the important things when you first, get a deal and you send everything over to the title company, the purchase agreement, Earnest Money, and things like that, you want to request a title commitment. So let's go into the title commitment and kind of define what that is. How long does it usually take to get it, and why it's so important?
Okay. That's James, you're full of good questions this morning, buddy. But essentially, what a title commitment, I'll give you the laid down basic version of it. A title company is a company that will issue a title commitment, will tell you this is what we see as everything on the property. Here's currently the name of the property and the name that it is currently vested in. Which means what name it's currently owned in, and we'll tell you everything that's on record on Schedule B, or we'll tell you what the exceptions are, what they will not insure, what's a public record. C will tell you everything the title company needs in order to close on that property, the conditions to close. As long as these are done, for example, the loan payoff needs to be done. There's the IRS needs there. It tells everybody this is the issues on the property, this is what we need to close on it. We will commit, with these things being accomplished, that we will guarantee that there are no title defects on that property at the time of closing. And if there are, we stand behind it until the end of time, that we guarantee that we will address that, pay further, fix any issues that come up, whether judgments, mechanics, things of that nature. It's very important because you never want to buy a property and not know what issues may be on that property, because they can come back to haunt you. What good is buying a property if you can't ever sell it, right, James?
Exactly. Or if you have to deal with problems, along the way,
right.
Unsolvable problems. Just a really quick example. And I know we're not talking about foreclosures here, but one of the things that we do with our volunteers and everything is we do go down to the foreclosure auction each month. And a few months ago, there was actually a couple of guys there that they were protesting the process because they had actually bought a property at the auction, but what they didn't realize, because they didn't do their homework right, and they didn't do the right title searches, and there was also some discrepancies involved, but they actually bought a second lien, and so
that happens every month, James. So many people, I can't tell you. It makes no sense to go to if you haven't done your due diligence. You need to always, do that. Every deal is not necessarily a great deal, right, James? Unless you do your homework. And a knowledgeable investor is one that does his homework.
Yeah, dot your I's and cross your T's and do it twice.
That's it. That's it, buddy.
So how long does it typically take if I were to send you guys a contract on Monday or a purchase agreement on Monday? How long does it on average usually take to get title commitment?
I mean, because of the fact that, I can speak not for every title company, but for our title company, a Transact Title, which we can typically get a commitment out as long as there's not any major issues on the property, and like anything's really substantive, within 3 to 5 days. You could typically get that. And I know most people are surprised, wow, that's really quick. It is. How are we able to do it? We maintain our own title plant and our own title plant staff. In the days of efficiencies, most title companies just outsource it and collect data from third parties services. We like to have control each and every part of our step of the process, including policy generation and whatnot. We do everything in-house, so we're able to get it back much faster. A lot of times when there's a delay, it's just because it's a rural county, and we like any other title company, have to collect data from those little rural counties. That could be a little delay, but on average, 3 to 5 days.
Now, is that, when you say 3 to 5 days, is that business days or calendar days?
Business days.
Business days. Okay. And do y'all ever put rushes on title?
Yes, we do. If it's a genuine situation, for example, there's a foreclosure shop, coming up in the next few days or whatnot, it's a legitimate hardship situation. We're happy to do that and get with the plan. I mean, keep in mind, we get a lot of rush requests from everybody, whether it's a rush or not. So we try to vet that out to make sure that everybody has an ample shot. If somebody's really in need, that they get that assistance, because it is time sensitive sometimes, especially when you come up against the wire, right, on a deal. And we're here to support the investors. So if there's their emergency, we treat it as our emergency.
And where does Transact Title service? Of course we're located in Houston, but what if we get a deal that's up in the Dallas area, or maybe even it's out of state? How does that work with you guys?
Perfect. So we cover the entire Transact Title Company covers the entire state of Texas. We can close anywhere in the state of Texas, and whether it's residential, commercial, whatever classification it may be, we can handle that. We have the resources and the knowledge and the data to do so. That we can close that on a national level. We can close anything that's commercial. And just recently, we have been in the process. We're going to be able to close anything that's residential that's going to be anywhere in the United States. That's a service. We had that ability. We were not opening it up, but now we're going to open it up for residential anywhere in all 50 states on the residential side. So that's going to be really good for a lot of investors that work in multi-state operations. So it'll be a one-stop shop. They contact one party. They can do it all.
Okay, so let's talk about the different types of closings that are out there, and the types of closings that you guys offer. So I'm gonna name a few of these, and let's talk about them for a couple minutes. We got simultaneous closings, blind closings, and double blind closings.
Okay, so let's start with the first one. The first one being what did you say, James?
Simultaneous.
Simultaneous is when you're essentially closing two transactions simultaneously. You've got, for example, a seller who's going to sell it to party A, and party A is going to sell it to another party at the same time, party B. And in that situation, it's going to happen at the same time. And a lot of times in those types of transactions, people utilize transactional funding, basically because RESPA technically says you can outfund one transaction utilizing the funds of the party. Each transaction has to be independently funded of the other one. Now, there's some caveats and some potential workarounds, but essentially a lot of people utilize transactional funding for a day or two and use those funds to close on both properties at the same time simultaneously, where you're doing the same property, but it's being bought and sold at the same time for party A and also to party B. Does that make sense? The ultimate end buyer.
Yes.
And the other one being double. What was the other one?
Blind closings and double blind.
Blind closing. Okay, blind closing is you've got separate statements for the buyers and separate statements for the sellers. So the buyers see their statements being right, but it's blinded because he's not able to see the seller. The seller's not able to see the buyer's statement because it's considered a blind HUD. Sometimes you have to be very cognizant because of the margins. Some distressed sellers may not understand the caveats, the obstacles, and the issues you may be facing, right? Essentially, right? So a lot of times it's good. Everybody focuses on their own columns and not worry about what the other guy is going to purchase or sell it for, right? In that situation, it comes down to where it doesn't make sense for the parties. They wish to have a blind HUD, basically. And it can be a great mechanism to be able to do so. So, that's something you should talk to your title company if that's something you wish to do to see if they allow that or not.
And you guys do allow that, the blind?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do allow that if you request that, right? And if we feel that as long as there's transparency and everything, that's not an issue at all.
Okay, and kind of a dumb question here, but
sure.
You guys work with You guys work with wholesalers and assignments of contracts and everything like that?
Yes, sir. We do. We understand it. We are investor friendly. right? What is investor friendly? None of that. We're friends of investors. Like what you see a lot of advertisements out there. Investor friendly is we understand the investor business, right? We understand the model. We understand the processes that what it takes, whether it's a wrap or a sub two or a short sale. You know, we my background, I mean, just to let you know, I grew up in the investment business at the age of 11. That's before we had all these classes and these wonderful RIAs out there like Lone Star RIA to help guide you how to do it, how to find your vendors, how to negotiate, how to do your contracts. Back then it was just a free for all, right? You learn. So I understand that business because I've been in your position for the investors, right? So I understand the nuances that you face. So we have tried to cater ourselves to those issues and have certain transactions already approved with our underwriters that we can go ahead and underwrite without having to go back and forth, you know, which makes it much easier and faster for any investor. And that's essentially what investor friendly should be.
Yes, and I just want to reiterate some of that and piggyback on it too. Investor friendly is that means that they know the investor business, they know the investor process, and they have the experience and they can get your deals closed. Investor friendly does not mean, you know, they're going to work for free or they're going to work for peanuts. You know, it is still a business, and you know, there are still fees, which that is, you know, leading into my next question. But you know, whether it's investor friendly title company or contractor, it's not always just about, you know, paying peanuts for something. You know, you're investing, you know, for a reason because you want a return on your money, and you know, having the right team members and players on your team, that's what's going to help you grow your money. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, add that in there. So speaking of that, what are some of the typical for transact title? What are some of the typical escrow fees?
You know, escrow fees for our title company run at $4.95 per side for the buyer side and for the seller side. So the escrow fees are typically standard across the board. Title insurance is the same rate anywhere you go in the state of Texas, right? Because we are regulated by the state. So the state sets the payment. So whatever you pay at one, you're going to pay it with us and vice versa. Where a title company excels, I tell everybody, is service that and deliverability of your product to get it in a timely manner and to get responses. That's where we excel. And you know, and I take pride in that. I tell my staff, we don't sing and we don't dance. And my associate, she says the same thing. The only thing we have is service, and that's what we pride ourselves in. That's what we're here for, is to offer service. If you need it, we're available.
So another interesting topic that I want to bring up as far as title is concerned, and I actually kind of went through this a little bit last year on a deal, but it says here the title company does not represent you. They're neutral, third party and neutral. And talk about the release of Earnest Money and how that works.
Okay. A title company, you've got some really good notes there, James. Good questions, buddy. So a title company is a neutral fiduciary. What is a fiduciary? We don't have a bone in the fight. We're there to look after the interests of both parties, everybody involved in the transaction, whether it's lender, realtors, buyers, sellers, inspectors, whatnot. So we're there to be a neutral and trusted party. Having said that, oftentimes there may be, hopefully there's not, but you know, realistically there is, issues on earnest money. Contract falls through, buyer didn't perform, seller didn't perform. At that point, the contracts typically say the earnest money will be held in trust with a title company to release. In today's day and time, when it comes time, there's a dispute. Somebody says, "Hey, I need the earnest money." There's a process. If you use the TREC form, you can make a demand upon the title company, whether it's email or something, just a ransom message, a note, a letter. I want the earnest money back. We then notify the opposing side and let them know, hey, we've got a request on this. If it's a TREC contract, TREC has a pretty specific condition that says if the earnest money demand is placed, and basically we've got 14 days. Once we send that and notify the other side, if we don't hear a response back and any ejection, then we can release it to the side that demands the earnest money. If not, we don't get it, or they say there's a dispute, then there has to be a release signed by both parties for us to release the money, because any title company is not judge and jury. We don't know the particular elements of what the issues are truly. So it's not possible for the title company to really release the earnest money unless there's very specific instructions given from day one in the contract. And in that situation, then it's clear that title company can get involved to release the earnest money. Otherwise, you have to have a form executed that says both parties release the earnest money. And if not, after a certain amount of time, after a few years, the title company can then escheat it to the state if it's not resolved.
Yeah, it's not something we want to get in a habit of.
It's a long-winded answer, yeah.
But we do definitely want to know about it. So we got about 10 or 12 minutes left. So I'm gonna keep the questions coming to you. When you compliment me like that, I'm gonna rise up. So let's talk a little bit about working with land trusts. Do you guys work with land trusts?
We do work with land trusts. That's a loaded question, James. So land trusts, the taxes are not technically allowable, but a lot of investor groups out there are proponents of land trusts, right? In other states, they work very well. So in Texas, they're not technically allowed, but people do use them. And that's something that if somebody wants to have willing to have an offline discussion, I'll put you in touch with some online or with our in-house law firm, Umatia Law Firm. Salima Umatia will be more than happy to speak to you on that. But that's complicated in that, it's not technically allowable, but it is used here commonplace. That I don't want to say anything that somebody could misconstrue it and misapply it. So that's the reason why my firm be obtuse. But I'd rather take that, have somebody call me and walk them through it, because it's a little bit more complicated on a land trust in the state of Texas. But it could be used as a very effective way to purchase property, and also especially when you're doing a wrap or short sale, to go into that to try and work around the due on sale clause.
Another reason to come to our meeting next Saturday.
Absolutely.
Because he'll be glad to share that with you. That's another thing to look for. When you're looking for an investor friendly title company, is that they have a legal department right there in their office.
Yeah.
And that's always a great thing. So what about if somebody's going to buy a property in a LLC or a corp or an LT, what do you require when that happens? What does transact title require?
So when they're going to purchase that property, this is a great way to purchase, because you reduce your liability personally. I don't recommend you buy anything in your personal name, buy in your entity name. But when you're going to purchase an LLC name, we need your operating agreement to see who has the authority to purchase or sell the property. That's the first. If not, we can create one. The law firm in-house law firm can be utilized, Umatia Law Firm, to generate the operating agreement or to generate the LLC or LP or whatever structure you may need. But that's the first one, because that's your Bible. That tells you everything you can do in the company, everything you can do, who can buy, who can sell, under what conditions. And I recommend that everybody have an operating agreement, or Oracle's organization, depending on the type of structure that they're looking to establish.
Okay.
And if you don't have one, we're always happy to have a discussion with you or set up time to meet with you to set up the correct type of structure you may need for your end goal.
Does your legal team, do they assist with that?
Absolutely. So Umatia Law Firm, the in-house real estate and transactional law firm, can handle business in all real estate transactions, set up entity formations in whatever capacities you need. We're happy to do that in a turnkey situation. And our operating agreements are geared for over many years. She's done a great job of gearing operating agreements towards real estate and investors. You never want to get a out of the box canned solution from the internet, because it's not going to really be beneficial for you long term. An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. A lot of times those internet stuff that you get, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. It's better than not having anything, but it's better to get the right thing. If you're going to go to war, you want the right tools in your tool belt.
Yes, exactly. So back to a little bit more of the title stuff here. You may have answered it, but just to revisit it, who do you guys write your title policy insurance policies through?
Okay, we're a larger title company, so because of the fact we have investor transactions and we do a lot of commercial and builder work, we have to have a number of outlets that understand each type of transaction, right, including investor. So we essentially have pretty much the gamut of all the national underwriters, whether it's Fidelity Title, Chicago Title, First American Title, North American Title, DOMA, Westcor, and you've got WFG as well, and Antic, which is owned by Blackstone Equity Group. So we essentially have almost 8 to 10 underwriters that we can kind of decide who's the best fit for your transaction, because some underwriters may not understand your flip or situation on your transaction, or there's an IRS issue that they don't work well with. Well, other underwriters we can place it with, they understand it. We may have approvals already in place for those types of transactions. So having the title company have the resources to place your transaction with the right one allows you more options to buy or sell your property. So we basically cover the gamut. We're covered there, probably more so than anybody else in the state.
Okay, now I want to go back into the some of the title commitment stuff that we had talked about in the beginning of this segment. But there are people out there that they're just like, okay, well the title company is working on my deal, they're working on the title issues, and for certain things, that might be okay, but you really got to take responsibility as an investor, or even as a wholesaler or flipper, that you got to take some responsibility. You got to take some responsibility, and there might be some things that you might have to get in there and work with. How much work and does your office put into clearing up title issues?
Well, we put a good bit of work. Because of our niche has been title defects on investor side. So each of our staff members is fully equipped to handle title issues turnkey. Most title companies shifted away from it years away. They give it to someplace in Chicago or the Philippines as title issues. They want to focus on the clean. But our staff, each person in our staff or escrow officer, escrow assistant is trained to do so at each office. We don't send it off to a third-party processing center to do the work, but we know how to do it, whether it's dead people judgment, anti-terrorism liens or whatnot, a chain of title issues, clouds on title. We can work through that. That's one of our areas of expertise, and we pride ourselves on that. There's almost very rarely can we not figure out a title issue. Our staff members have anywhere from, on average, 20 to 48 years of experience individually, just to give you an idea of the totality of experience that we have on staff.
Is there any examples that you can think of maybe like one or two things or so that you guys are not able to do or clear up?
We've got one or two examples that have been where it was a commercial dispute as well as title issues, and there were a lot of dead people. Usually we can get around it. We call it dead people, of ways to get out of it without having to deal with probate. But basically, it was the essence of a partnership dispute at the end. Title issues were done, but the partners were disputed, family members were disputed, I should say, that killed the deal that couldn't get it done. But it's not because we couldn't figure it out. There's always a solution, right? Whether or not the people are willing to go forward on it is the issue. But there's typically a solution out there for any title issues or title defects. And people don't realize what an important issue some title issues are. It can stop you from ever selling that property. And nobody would want to buy a property without knowing that you can't get it insured Because what's the benefit of having something if you can't ultimately have the gain returned back to you? Is that correct, James?
That is correct.
It's important. Never underestimate a title issue.
Yeah.
I've seen many deals go awry over that.
So we only got about 2.5, 3 minutes left, and then we're gonna have to we do have to wrap up. But I do want to kind of open a little can of worms here. One important issue that comes up, I'm sure, on a lot of title problems is the memorandum of contract. Do you have like a 1 minute word, something you want to say about memos?
Okay, yeah, memorandums are an interesting subject in the state of Texas for sure, right? So it's a gray area. Investors use memorandums of contracts. So what are memorandums of contracts? Memorandums of contracts are a memorandum or notice that's to the world that there is another contract has been executed on this property, so that if there is an issue, another seller, distressed owner wishes to sell that property, basically the title company or other potential buyers of the contract, they will close it so that it keeps everybody honest. Now, it can be a very effective tool, I understand, for everybody, but as long as it's not abused in the marketplace. As long as it's not abused in the marketplace.
Yeah, that is the key. So it has to be used at the right time. We are unfortunately out of time, but again, thank you, Mansour, for being here. That was lots of wonderful information.
Lots of good questions.
Yeah, so we appreciate you being here. Remember, guys, next Saturday, May 14th, at the Transact Title Building on 610, we're going to be there. We're going to have Peter Fortunato. LoneStarRia.net. That's where you can find all of our info. LoneStarRia.net. LoneStarRia, REIA.net. We'll see you in San Antonio on Tuesday and next Saturday here in Houston. Y'all have a good weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Massive Passive Show, where we teach investors how to get off the hamster wheel of transactional real estate. Hi, I'm Becky Fields, president of the Greater Houston RIA, and would like to invite you to join us at our regular monthly RIA meetings on the second Saturday morning each month. If you're in the San Antonio area, the Alamo RIA meets on the evening of the second Tuesday each month. Go to LoneStarRia.org for more information. We would love to see you there.
On radio.com, this is AM 10.